8 miners vanished in 1997 after striking a gold vein worth $500 million. Officials blamed a collapse, until a sealed room was found deep inside the abandoned mine. What investigators uncovered inside proved something far darker, and the truth still shakes the families today. The Black Ridge Mountains of Colorado had always been a place where men vanished long before anyone started counting. The terrain swallowed people, hunters, hikers, and sometimes entire mining crews. But nothing compared to what happened in the summer of 1997, when an entire team of 8 gold miners walked into the Hawthorne Deep Mine and never walked back out. These were not amateurs. They were federally certified, experienced in deep shaft mining, and contracted under the U.S. Mineral Acquisition Program. The mine was old, abandoned twice before, but it was rich, rumored to hide a final untouched vein of gold worth hundreds of millions. But on June 14, 1997, the miners clocked in at 6:03 a.m. By 9:12 a.m., radio contact with the team ceased. By noon, rescue teams were assembled. By sundown, the mine had been sealed for environmental safety concerns, and the official written explanation was, "Mine collapse. No survivors." Families protested. Experts disagreed. And for years, rumors spread that the government had covered something up. But no one, not even the families, knew the truth. The mine wasn't sealed because it collapsed. It was sealed because something inside terrified even the investigators. Something man-made. Something intentional. Something evil. And it would take 8 long years before that secret was exposed. In early 1997, the Hawthorne mining crew, 8 men from 3 different states, began a federally backed excavation after surveyors detected metallic anomalies deep below the abandoned tunnels. By March, the team struck something massive. A gold vein unlike anything seen in modern mining. Purity over 95%. Size exceeding $500 million in estimated yield. To the government, it was a breakthrough. To the miners, it was a retirement plan. But to one man on the team, Cliff Barrett, age 41, it was something else entirely. Greed had always lived in him like a second heartbeat. The crew saw him as paranoid, distrustful, and territorial. Whenever gold was found, Cliff measured it twice, touched it more than anyone else, took more samples, inspected every inch of the claim with quiet obsession. He slept with the samples near his cot. The others joked that he'd marry a gold nugget if given the chance. But no one knew how far his obsession had grown. When he calculated the potential yield, nearly $500 million, something snapped inside him. He began spending late nights drawing diagrams, calculating load-bearing points in the mine walls, and studying the old blueprints that documented hidden technician rooms built in the 1930s. He wasn't looking for safety exits. He was looking for a place to hide bodies. Cliff mapped out everything. He knew the shift schedules. He knew the blast patterns. He knew the weaknesses in the tunnel braces. And he knew exactly which old chamber, unused since 1938, could be turned into a tomb. The sealed room, as investigators would later call it, was originally a ventilation bypass chamber. Small, hollow, long abandoned, and built with reinforced steel walls. One way in, one way out. The perfect trap. Cliff started stockpiling materials without drawing suspicion. Steel plates, epoxy resin, old ventilation bolts, a surplus blasting cap, and food, just enough to survive alone if the trap failed. By June, he had everything ready. He just needed the right moment. And then it came, a small dispute among the miners about how the gold should be distributed. A harmless argument. A common one. But to Cliff, it was confirmation. "They're gonna cut me out," he whispered to himself. That same night, he stayed awake until sunrise, finalizing the plan that would make him the sole owner of a $500 million vein. June 14, 1997. The miners followed the usual routine: equipment checks, oxygen readings, and then a descent into Shaft B, 27. Cliff stayed unusually close behind them. At 8:47 a.m., the crew entered a narrow side corridor leading toward the newly exposed gold vein. At 8:52 a.m., Cliff triggered the modified ventilation failsafe. According to the later crime reconstruction, he executed the plan with chilling precision. 1. Lead the team toward the false secondary access tunnel. 2. Wait until all 7 miners stepped inside. 3. Detonate the small blast preset on the support column. 4. Rush out of the corridor before the dust settled. 5. Slam the reinforced 1930s maintenance door shut. 6. Seal the bolts. 7. Apply quick-setting industrial resin. 8. Walk away while their pounding fists and screams echoed behind him. The miners weren't killed by the blast. They were trapped alive. The sealed room was airtight, soundproof, lightless, and impossible to escape. Cliff left the mine that afternoon telling supervisors the team was delayed due to a minor tunnel issue. By the time anyone checked, the damage was already done. When rescue teams arrived hours later, Cliff was long gone. The mine was declared too unstable to re-enter. Official cause: catastrophic collapse. Unofficial truth: one man had murdered 7 others to become rich. Cliff returned 3 days later, under cover of night, to retrieve what he believed he had earned. Using old maps and his knowledge of the structure, he accessed a different route into the mine chamber, packed what he could of the high-purity gold, and hid it in waterproof military-grade containers. For 8 years, Cliff lived under fake identities. Wyoming, Montana, Utah, New Mexico. He moved the gold frequently, paranoid that someone was following him. But the U.S. government had not forgotten. A missing federally contracted crew meant federal jurisdiction. Even without evidence, they monitored old mines, tracked suspicious sales, and watched for unusual gold trading attempts. Cliff had $500 million, but he couldn't spend any of it. It drove him insane. In April 2005, Cliff attempted to trade a portion of the gold, only a few pounds, through a private buyer in Nevada. But the gold was too pure, too unique, and the U.S. Geological Survey had records. That buyer reported the unusual purity to federal authorities. 2 weeks later, undercover agents set a trap. Cliff walked into a warehouse expecting payment. He walked out in handcuffs. But the arrest was only the beginning. Agents found maps, blueprints, handwritten notes mentioning the sealed chamber, and most importantly, GPS coordinates to Hawthorne Deep Mine. Within days, a full federal excavation began, and what they found beneath the dust of 8 years stunned even veteran investigators. On July 18, 2005, structural engineers broke through the final layer of resin and steel covering the forgotten 1930s door. Behind it was the room everyone had feared existed. Inside were the remains of the 7 miners, positioned in a heartbreaking circle as if they had died facing each other. The chamber walls were clawed and scratched, fingernails embedded in the steel. A lantern lay shattered in the corner. Their helmets, tools, personal items, all untouched. Investigators determined that the miners survived for between 7 and 16 hours after the door sealed shut. They had spoken. They had tried to strategize. They had tried to break the steel. Their last moments were spent together, realizing no help would come. The discovery was not just tragic. It was proof of premeditated murder. The case was reopened immediately. Families were contacted, and the truth, finally, was undeniable. During interrogation, Cliff refused to speak. But the evidence spoke for him. His fingerprints inside the sealed chamber, his resin on the bolts, his handwriting in the planning notes, gold samples matching the exact vein the crew found, maps showing escape routes. journals filled with paranoid rants about keeping it all. It was the most extensive mining-related homicide case in U.S. history. The trial lasted 9 months. Prosecutors described Cliff as a man who weaponized the earth itself, turning a mine into a tomb for 7 innocent men. He was convicted on 7 counts of first-degree murder, federal theft of government property, tampering with evidence, abandonment of a federal worksite, fraudulent identity use. Sentence: life imprisonment without parole. When asked if he wanted to speak before sentencing, he said only, "They shouldn't have touched my gold." The Hawthorne Deep Mine is permanently sealed, not for safety, but as a memorial. A plaque marks the location, in memory of the 7 miners who never came home. Families gather every June to honor them. The U.S. government restricts access within 5 miles. And the sealed room, still intact, is preserved exactly as it was found, silent testimony to what greed can do to a man. As for the gold, the government reclaimed most of it. But some believe Cliff hid a portion somewhere in the desert during his years on the run. Treasure hunters still search for it. But locals say the mine's ghosts don't want the gold to be found. Not again.